Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into your official early round fantasy survival guide. Talking busts, talking players I love, talking strategies. What should you do in the first few rounds? Should you go running back heavy? We're going to discuss that. I first want to hit on a key few points, talk about certain players, and then we'll look throughout the entire big board of rounds 1 through 3, right around a 12-team league. I'll also be giving advice for 10-team and 14-team leagues. But mainly, guys, the standard 12-team full PPR is what I'm going to be giving advice here for the early rounds. So we have rounds 1 through 3, fantasy football. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, no quarterbacks. And you could really extend this to rounds 4 and rounds 5, even in a 12-team league, guys. You do not want to use an early draft pick, an early asset on a quarterback when you could be drafting a starting receiver. You could be drafting a great flex. You could be taking a guy like a Travis Etienne, but especially rounds 1 through 3, my God, please do not draft a quarterback early. If you're a noob, I know you're thinking quarterbacks are the most important position in football. Not in fantasy. It's completely switched. They're completely replaceable, especially in 10 and 12 team leagues. There's going to be so many quarterbacks out there on the waiver wire. Everyone normally only needs 1, maybe 2 quarterbacks on your roster max. So there are going to be guys available that have good matchups that you can plug into your lineup any week. Stay away from quarterbacks rounds 1 through 3, but you can even extend that to rounds 4 and 5. No quarterbacks. Bottom line. Next thing I want to talk about, don't be afraid to stack running backs. And guys, by stacking running backs, I don't mean just round 1 and round 2. I wouldn't be afraid to go a running back to back, rounds 1, rounds 2, rounds 3. I've been doing a lot of 12-team, 14-team mock drafts, and what I've been realizing, after round 3, the running back depth falls off a cliff completely. If you want stud running backs, I say at least in the first two out of your first 3 picks in the first 3 rounds should be running backs. Now, if Devontae Adams falls to pick 17th or 18th, you might want to take him, things like that. I never want to say, you must follow this strategy, but I'm just saying, if you want, think of your team as a tree. The roots are the running backs. Your team is a tree. The roots are the running backs. You want that stable running backs. The first round, you get the 5th or 6th pick. Please, if you're in a 12 or 14 team league, don't take Travis Kelce. Don't take a receiver. Take a solid running back. Take a Zeke. Take a Derrick Henry. You need the roots. You need that solid running back. And again, guys, don't be afraid to stack the running backs. Go back to back to back. To where, I love, rookie receivers later in the draft. Jamar Chase, round 4, round 5, Odell Beckham, I'm high on. That's for another day. This is just early rounds. But don't be afraid to stack the running backs. Stay away from Antonio Gibson. Guys, this is my guaranteed bust. Please, this is Kenyon Drake 2.0. Antonio Gibson, stay away from him. I don't like that Washington offense. J.D. McKissic is going to take a lot of his target share away from him. He's not going to be catching a lot of passes out of the backfield. Please stay away from Antonio Gibson. If there's one running back to not draft in the first 2 or 3 rounds, it's Antonio Gibson. Stay away. Any other running back, not him. Stay away, please. DAndre Swift versus Miles Sanders. A really interesting debate here. And guys, I'm not high on Miles Sanders. I really am not. Last year he had injuries. This year Jalen Hurts is probably going to eat into some of his, carries. Jalen Hurts is kind of a mobile quarterback. I love DAndre Swift. If you're playing full PPR, which most of us are, DAndre Swift out of the backfield, catching passes. The Lions are going to be losing a lot of games. There's a lot of garbage time fantasy points to be had with DAndre Swift. I think he'll catch 6, 7, 8 passes some games. Free PPR points, ladies and gentlemen, out of the backfield. DAndre Swift, they invested a high pick into him 2 years ago. He's going to do very well. Jared Goff, big into checkdowns as well. I love that recipe. I love DAndre Swift over Miles Sanders. If you have those 2 players, I would highly recommend taking DAndre Swift. Travis Kelce is a no-no in big leagues. I talked about this earlier, guys. Nothing against Travis Kelce. He is an absolute stud, but drafting a tight end 4th, 5th, 6th overall over a Ezekiel Elliott, over a Derrick Henry, when you're in a 12, 14, 16 team league, you will be kicking yourself in round 5 and round 6 when you're looking for a flex, when you're looking for that RB2 and there's no one available and you're forced to pick up somebody who's in a timeshare committee type deal. You want to draft running backs early. I know Travis Kelce is ranked 4th overall on ESPN's big board. If you're in a 10-team league, go ahead and draft Travis Kelce. 10-team leagues, there's a lot more picks. You got a lot more guys, a lot more options. But if you're in a bigger league, that's where, it gets late quick with the running back position. You want to stay away from Travis Kelce just based off position value alone. Stay away. Young wide receivers are king. Guys, we're talking about guys like DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson. I love those guys. I love young wide receivers in this draft, in that kind of late second round range. If you can get any of DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, maybe you get like at the 5th or 6th pick, you take someone like Saquon, he falls a little bit, you circle back around, you get someone like DK Metcalf. I love DK Metcalf this year. I love Justin Jefferson, and I love Calvin Ridley. Those 3 guys. And also another wild card, I love CeeDee Lamb over Amari Cooper this year. CeeDee Lamb over Amari Cooper. CeeDee's got great talent. He's getting Dak back. Amari Cooper should be okay, but I am not drafting Amari Cooper based on where he's currently positioned to go, kind of that early 4th round range. Give me CeeDee Lamb over him. Kamara versus Cook versus Barkley, a really interesting scenario if you have the 2nd overall pick. A lot of people going the way of Dalvin Cook. He's a very stable running back. I completely agree. He's very good. But if I had the 2nd overall pick, I would think long and hard about potentially taking Alvin Kamara or Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley is really the guy I want to talk about here. Saquon Barkley is guaranteed to get at least 20 to 25 touches a game. Guaranteed. Now, you can say the same thing about Dalvin Cook, but Saquon Barkley, the receiving skills out of the backfield, Daniel Jones, a guy who likes to check down, he really doesn't go down the field a lot. He's got that safety valve in Saquon. We know Saquon was injured last year. You could treat that as a negative and say, well, he's injury prone, or you could think, he's been rested, he's not been taking hits, he's ready to go. It was a tough injury. We're going to make sure he comes back from that injury 100%. But Saquon Barkley, I'm really intrigued at potentially drafting him as high as 2nd overall. Alvin Kamara, absolute stud with Michael Thomas out. He's probably going to be very good. I will say maybe not as much underneath passes to Alvin Kamara with Jameis back there and not a washed-up Drew Brees who was looking to check down every chance he got. But Alvin Kamara still in full PPR leagues is going to be phenomenal. DK versus Diggs versus Jefferson. So yeah, this is another interesting hot take that I have. I do think DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson will outscore Stefon Diggs this year. The main reason, I don't think Josh Allen can replicate the kind of year he had last year. I know Stefon Diggs right now is ranked higher than both DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson, but I like the 2 younger receivers to have better years than Stefon Diggs. I just think I'm not 100% convinced Josh Allen can replicate that great year, that almost MVP type year he had last year. I think he's a good quarterback. But as you know, it's Stefon Diggs' numbers. I'm not expecting them to be as nearly as good as they were last year. Zeke is safe. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott, not talked about a lot, had a very underwhelming down year last year, had injuries. Dak Prescott was out. They were keying in on him. But he surprisingly catches a lot of passes out of the backfield. He has value with the PPR game. That Cowboys offense is going to be humming with Dak back. He got the big contract. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. They're going to be moving the ball. They're going to be in the red zone a lot. And if there's one thing we know Zeke gets, it's goal line carries. He gets the most goal line carries out of anybody. He's going to get fed. He's going to be fine, guys. Zeke, if you have the 7th overall pick and Zeke is there, he's an easy guy to draft. He's a safe player. He's a stable player. Again, guys, think of your fantasy team as a tree. The roots are the running backs. Get those stable running backs. Zeke Elliott, that's a solid running back pick. That's a good pick in the 1st round if you got the 6th or 7th pick. Henry is not, question mark. Yes, I just wanted to bring this up to people who really aren't paying attention to it. Derrick Henry's been phenomenal the past 2 years, but he's also gotten run into the absolute ground. If I had the 6th overall pick and it was between Zeke and Derrick Henry, I would take Zeke. Zeke is fresher. He's ready to go. Derrick Henry, he does have that big contract. They invested a lot of money into him. That's obviously a good thing. That means, they're going to give him the ball a lot, but he has been run into the ground. Be wary of Derrick Henry. I'm not saying don't pick him. If he falls a little bit, I would 100% pick him. But he has been, no one's talking about it. He's gotten so many carries over the past 2 years. You see this with running backs. They really start to depreciate quickly. I'm not saying I don't want him to get injured or anything like that. I'm just saying it's something to watch. Something to watch with Derrick Henry and the workload he's received the past 2 years. And also, obviously, we know not if you're in a full-point PPR league, he's going to be devalued a little bit. He doesn't catch many passes at all out of the backfield, unfortunately. Kittle is undervalued. So in 12-team mock drafts, I'm constantly seeing George Kittle kind of undervalued. Darren Waller going above him. Not that I disagree that Darren Waller should be picked above him, but just several mock drafts I've seen, it's kind of stuck with me to the point where it's just like, man, George Kittle, he got injured last year, but he was playing really well before the injury. He is definitely, if you could get him late 3rd round, early 4th, he's an asset. Getting on an elite tight end. Maybe you go running back round 1, running back round 2. tight end round 3, and then back-to-back receivers, someone like Jamar Chase. I love Jamar Chase, guys. We'll talk about that in another video. This is just early rounds. But George Kittle, late in round 3, someone I'm constantly seeing falling in mock drafts, a guy that you should definitely target, and definitely in 10-team leagues as well. 10-team leagues, if you've been playing a 10-team league, George Kittle, early 4th round, you think about it, you get 2 running backs, a receiver, and then take Kittle, and then go back to a receiver. Oh my goodness, that's such a good strategy. And then JK all day. I love J.K. Dobbins. People are scared off. He's going to be falling in your fantasy drafts a little bit, maybe due to Gus Edwards, maybe due to John Harbaugh, right? John Harbaugh loves the committee. Gus Edwards is still there. We know that. But I love J.K. Dobbins. He averaged 5 yards per carry, or maybe 6 yards per carry last year, with something crazy like that. He has a nose for the goal line. He got a lot of touchdowns, 8 or 9 touchdowns in limited snaps. And you could, the one negative with Lamar Jackson is he doesn't dump off a lot. He'd rather just run with his legs, so there's not a lot of passing options for JK, but I still think JK is a good receiver. 2 or 3 passes a game, get those PPR numbers up a little bit. The touchdowns are going to be so key. If JK can have 15 or 16 total touchdowns this year, he'll be phenomenal. I feel so safe with drafting JK Dobbins in front of guys like Antonio Gibson, in front of guys like Miles Sanders. Guys, JK all day is a great late second round pick in a 10 or a 12 team league. Now, guys, moving on, I just wanted to talk about the ESPN's overall rankings, kind of go through this really quickly. You've got the clear number 1 overall player, Christian McCaffrey. I would 100% draft him number 1 overall, no questions asked. There's Dalvin Cook. There's Saquon and Kamara, kind of that interesting scenario I was talking about. Travis Kelce, I would stay away from him if you play in a 12-team league or a bigger league. You need to draft running backs early. Then there's Henry and Zeke. Love them both. I really do like Jonathan Taylor if you have a late first-round pick. Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I would pick Devontae Adams before I would pick Tyreek Hill, with the news of Aaron Rodgers being back with the Green Bay Packers, but that's such a close call. We know Tyreek Hill has Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be phenomenal. He'll be fine, but I think Devontae Adams just a little bit more consistent. Devontae Adams going into a contract year. He should be good. Austin Eckler, I really like. The only thing I'm concerned with him is the goal line touches, and the overall touchdowns could be lacking a little bit. Stefon Diggs, I talked about him earlier. Don't love him this year. Aaron Jones is someone, even with Aaron Rodgers back, I am down on Aaron Jones with A.J. Dillon there. Watch out for Aaron Jones. I would draft Nick Chubb over him, not Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, we know, is my official bust. I don't think Antonio Gibson's going to be very good. Joe Mixon's an interesting option. I like Joe Mixon, middle of the second round if you're in a 12-team league. DeAndre Hopkins, I like guys in front of DeAndre Hopkins better. The thing with DeAndre Hopkins, there's so many mouths to feed in Arizona. He's guaranteed to have a good year, but just how good of a year is he going to have? There's so many mouths to feeds in Arizona. I would take a guy like Calvin Ridley above him. I would take a guy like DK Metcalf above him. Najee Harris, good option. You need to build running back depth. He's going to be a starter. He is a rookie. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, decent option, not bad. We'll have to see what happens with Kansas City. He kind of had a weird rookie year. I think they'll feed him the ball a lot more this year. Love Calvin Ridley, mid to late second round, money receiver. DK Metcalf, love him. DeAndre Swift, love him. Miles Sanders, not huge into Miles Sanders, but if he falls far enough, I would pick him. A.J. Brown, I'm interested to see the relationship that A.J. Brown and Julio Jones have in terms of the target share that's going to be going on there with Ryan Tannehill. They already don't throw the ball a lot, so I'm a little bit down on A.J. Brown. Maybe if he falls in the mocks, I would take it, but I definitely like Justin Jefferson over A.J. Brown. Terry McLaurin, I like him. Ryan Fitzpatrick has facilitated a lot of good receivers. He should be fine. Kind of a high pick. Maybe I would go mid-third round on him. Same thing with Keenan Allen. They're both very similar receivers. J.K. Dobbins, I love him. I would take J.K. Dobbins late second round, easy. Chris Carson is always a guy that normally produces when he's on the field, so he's a solid running back option. David Montgomery, I don't like at all. So David Montgomery ranked 30th overall right now on ESPN's big board. I would steer clear of him. He's ranked that high due to the fact that he's a starting running back, and he also tore it up towards the end of last year. He had a really nice run towards the end of last year, but with Andy Dalton back there, I don't love David Montgomery early in the season. He could be a trade candidate, someone you should trade for when his value gets low by week 4 or week 5, and they're ready to start Justin Fields. That'll be interesting. Allen Robinson, don't love him, don't hate him. Probably wouldn't draft him unless he fell. I'm not drafting Amari Cooper this year. I'm not drafting Mike Evans this year. Guys, I have never drafted Mike Evans in a single mock draft or real draft in my life. Sometimes there's just players like that. Everyone has it. You're a fantasy player. You've been playing fantasy for a while. There's guys like that. Robert Woods, solid option. CeeDee Lamb, I love him. Waller is a guy I'm constantly seeing going ahead of where he's slotted 36, and George Kittle 37, someone that I've said I said earlier in the video, George Kittle, someone to target late in the third round, early fourth. He's someone that's always been there. He's always been there. But guys, those are around the top 36, 37 players. That would be 3 rounds, the early rounds for 12-team leagues. So those are just some of my overall takes. I will be coming out with more videos, a mid-round strategy and a late-round strategy. But when it comes to the earlier round strategy, guys, say you have the number 1 overall pick, I would go, obviously, you draft McCaffrey. So you have your star running back. It's a 12-team league. You're not picking until 24th or 25th. I would love Justin Jefferson. I would love DeAndre Swift if he fell to me. I would love J.K. Dobbins. It's like, think about it. This is a 12-team league. You draft first overall. You get McCaffrey. You come back around and you get Justin Jefferson and J.K. Dobbins. That's a phenomenal start to your team. Again, those first 3 rounds, you want at least 2 running backs, guys. I wouldn't be opposed to go running back, rounds 1 through 3 if it's set up like that. But there's so many stud receivers that you can get late in round 2, like a DK Metcalf, like a Justin Jefferson, guys like that, Calvin Ridley. There's so many guys there. It's hard to not take the receivers late in round 2. So I think maybe the best strategy would go running back, receiver, running back. You take the stud running back, you get one of the young receivers, and then you try and get a guy like a J.K. Dobbins, maybe a Chris Carson in that early third round. Some interesting strategies to look at, guys. I will be back with a mid-round strategy. We're going rounds 4 through 6 or 4 through 7. A lot more receivers, a lot more receiver talk in those rounds. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.